Hello, everyone. This tarot reading is for anyone who's actually recently experienced a situation that felt emotionally intense or confusing or draining, but you also didn't really stop to process it. You just got through it and kept moving. And I actually feel like a lot of you haven't given yourself credit for how well you handled that situation. So, this reading is about slowing things down just for a moment and actually acknowledging what you did and how well you handled it, and just how much strength that actually really took of you, my darling. Because I actually feel you handled it far better than you realise, okay? Now, God, I do want to mention there was a song that came through when I was meditating on your cards. The Sophie Alex Spector song, you know, the Murder on the Dance Floor, and it was this lyric. Oh God, if you think you get it, what was it? If you think you'll get away, I will prove you wrong. I'll take you all the way, boy, just come along and hear me when I say. And then yeah, the rest. But it was that part of the song that was like in my head. So I thought, let's Google that. I want to know what that means, what that song's about. So, what I found really resonated actually with this energy of what I'm picking up with this reading. Okay, so what I read basically very quickly is Sophie Alex Bextor wrote that song after having this like weird experience with a guy on a night out, and instead of allowing his behaviour to ruin her evening, she basically thought, nah, not today, Satan. I ain't giving you that power. I'm pretty much a toodaloo. And then she chose to carry on, enjoying herself, had a great night, and did not let, somebody else's like behaviour determine how her evening went. Okay, and that's kind of like exactly the energy I'm picking up here. Um, this reading isn't necessarily about a night out or a relationship, but it's about the same mindset. Okay, something happened that could have completely pulled you into fear or anger or frustration or anxiety or old habits or old ways of reacting. Okay, but instead you chose yourself, and you refused to let one situation or experience define you. You just kept going, and that's what I'll get into now. So, what you went through with the Judgment reversed and the Knight of Wands, to me, this looks like something happened very, very quickly, very like unexpectedly or very impulsively, and it almost feels like you didn't have much time to think. Now, for some of you, this could have triggered like anxiety, panic, overwhelm, or fear, because everything happened kind of so fast. Okay. Now, for others, this could have been someone else's behaviour that kind of completely caught you off guard. Maybe somebody, or someone suddenly changed towards you. Maybe something happened at work, or maybe you received like unexpected news, or plans might have changed overnight, or someone sent you a message that instantly brought back old emotions. Anything, yeah, anything, something could have happened. Whatever this was, it feels like it happens so quickly that your first instinct could have been to like react the way the old version of you would have always handled it or responded. Yeah. Now, that's what judgment reversed feels like to me. It almost feels like you were standing at a crossroads between your old ways of handling things and your new way, okay? Because with the devil and the moon appearing in this reading, I don't think you had all the answers. You don't, like, it's like you didn't really have complete clarity. You didn't know exactly where the situation was heading. And that uncertainty could have easily tempted you back into old, like, coping mechanisms. So for some of you, that might have looked like overthinking everything. For others, it could have been constantly, checking your phone, wanting answers immediately, arguing, getting defensive, trying to control the situation, panicking, running away, people pleasing, yeah? Or simply letting the fear take over. But you didn't, my darling. And that's what I think is so important here. Because what I actually love about this energy is how calm I feel from this you became. It's almost like you realise that feeding that dramatic, negative, or low vibrational energy wasn't actually going to help you. And instead of reacting immediately, you kept checking in with yourself. Because I absolutely love this Ace of Cups. The energy that I'm getting from this Ace of Cups in this reading is, I just love it. Um, so yeah, I actually feel like you slowed yourself down. You took one step at a time, and that to me is where I see like a newer version of you, beginning to emerge. A version of you that is so much more. I feel now because of this experience, you're actually more emotionally aware, my darling, much more in control, and much more grounded. Yes, the situation happened very quickly, and yes, you had to adapt very quickly. But instead of allowing your emotions to pull you in every direction, you chose to stay present and deal with one thing at a time as well. And that takes a lot more strength than you probably realise, my darling. Um, Now, the way that I feel like how you handled it with the Ace of Cups and the Devil, I actually really like this combination because I think it explains exactly why you handle this so differently, okay? Because the devil shows there's absolutely was temptation, or temptation to go back to old habits, or temptation to overreact, or temptation to feed the fear, or temptation to believe like the negative thoughts, or temptation to give your energy to someone or something that honestly didn't deserve it. The temptation 100% was there. The old version of you probably would have gone there. But this Ace of Cups completely changed the story. Instead of feeding the devil, you kept coming back to yourself. You checked in with yourself. You asked yourself what actually feels or felt right, yeah? You were patient with yourself. You gave yourself compassion instead of criticism, okay? You trusted your intuition more than your fear. And that's what the Ace of Cups feels like to me. It's almost like your intuition became louder than your anxiety. Your heart became like louder than your fear, my darling. And because of that, you didn't allow yourself to get pulled into something that would have only taken you or taken your peace away. Yeah? Um, Maybe this was a person, maybe this was your own mindset, maybe it was an old coping mechanism or a way of handling difficult situations. Whatever it was, I don't feel like you approached it in the way you normally would have. There was much more care, much more gentleness, emotional maturity. And yes, there may have been, still like being this kind of like emotional pull, and you may have still, felt tempted in some way, but you kept like, I feel like you kept kind of like saying to yourself, "Nah, I need to stay grounded here." And that's exactly what you did. Even if there was an emotional pull, you didn't abandon your own awareness. You didn't completely lose yourself, and that's why I feel like you didn't get stuck here. Okay, and I feel what this has taught you with the Nine of Wands reversed and the Page of Cups reversed is not to ignore your own well-being or your own needs anymore. What I keep looking at and what I actually really admire is how these two cards are actually facing forwards. Yeah, they're not looking back towards the devil or the judgment or the Knight of Wands reversed. They're not feeding that energy anymore. It's almost like you've learned what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Whether that's your own fears, anxieties, negative thoughts, old coping mechanisms, a relationship, a friendship, a job, or even actually an addiction as well, or an unhealthy habit, yeah? You've realised that just because something wants your attention doesn't mean it deserves your attention. And I honestly think that's a huge lesson. Because I feel that the old version of you would have kept feeding it. You would have kept overthinking, trying to fix it, trying to control it, trying to understand it, kept chasing for answers, or kept pouring your energy into something that was slowly actually draining you. But this version of you didn't. Instead, it's kind of like, I don't know, I just feel like you stepped back and asked yourself, does this actually deserve my peace? Does this deserve my time? Does this deserve my energy or my reaction or, something like that? And a lot of you, the answer was no. It really didn't. And so this reading feels like you've developed this also like a new level of self-respect and healthier boundaries as well, my darling. Not because you're shutting people out, but because you're finally recognizing what is actually healthy for you and what isn't. And I just love, I love how these cards aren't looking back, to this here. They're looking ahead. They're looking to they're focused on the future, one step at a time. Or they're focused on building something healthier instead of repeating something that no longer serves them. Okay, or serves you, sorry. And that's why I keep feeling like you didn't just survive or face something. It feels like you've also broken a cycle as well, Madonna, is kind of what I get with this. Now, what you need to acknowledge with the Seven of Pentacles and the Moon is actually how proud of you should be and how well you handled yourself during this uncertainty. Because the moon is, especially with the devil being here as well, my darling, the moon is uncertainty. It's not knowing, it's confusion, it's navigating through dark without being able to see the whole path ahead. And for a lot of you, that could have been incredibly triggering. You want, of course, you want bloody answers. You want certainty. You want to know where things, we're heading. But instead of forcing answers, instead of rushing it, and instead of trying to control everything, you stayed patient. You reflected. You kept checking in with yourself. You gave yourself time to understand what's actually happening. You gave the situation actually space. You trusted that clarity would come when it was supposed to. And I also feel like this was something that you were as well, like, I don't think you were talking or discussing this with everybody else around you, okay? I feel this is something where you were navigating within yourself. You were relying on your own intuition, your own inner guidance, your own judgment. And even when things didn't feel, like, make sense to you, you were trying to build an understanding while still sitting in that uncertainty, and you still kept going. Yeah, you didn't collapse into like confusion. You didn't completely abandon yourself. You didn't stop functioning. You kept putting I get that, yeah, one foot in front of the other, patiently, calmly, and with far more emotional control than you may realise, my darling. So yeah, I think this reading is really asking you to recognise that you handled a confusing, emotional and intense situation far better than you think you did. Not because you handled it perfectly, but because you stayed aware. You didn't completely lose yourself. You didn't allow fear to make every decision for you. And you learned as well, my darling, from the experience while you were still living through it, okay? And you kept moving forward. And like the energy of the murder on the dance floor, there is something within you that is that kind of like refuse to let someone else's behaviour or a difficult situation or a period of uncertainty take away your peace. Even when things were unclear, even when you didn't have all the answers, you kept choosing yourself. Not in a selfish way, not in a nasty way, in a smart way, okay? And maybe not in massive, big, dramatic ways, but in lots of small little moments, you kept checking in with yourself, taking a breath before reacting, choosing peace over panic, choosing patience over impulsiveness, choosing growth over like old patterns, yeah? And those small choices have added up to something much bigger than you probably realise. So if you take one thing away from this reading, my darling, I would say, please give yourself the credit you deserve, because the version of you handles something that the old version of you might not have, okay? And that is something worth being incredibly proud of. There's growth here, my darling, all right? So well done. Have a good day. Bye.